Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the webinar. Today we'll be discussing Let's Talk Runaway Prevention, Stories from the Field. I'm Rachel Reynolds. I'm the Outreach and Prevention Specialist at National Runaway Safeline. And then we're also joined here with Lee Osipchuk, who's the Director of Training, Education, and Prevention. Just to go over some logistics before we start, all the attendees are going to be muted at the beginning, but if you have any urgent questions, please feel free to just put them in the question box. We'll most likely save them to the end, but if it's anything that seems appropriate now to kind of interrupt, Lee will ask it, and we'll just address it like that. Otherwise, most likely, we'll have some time at the end to address everything. So these are some learning objectives today, some things I want everyone to hopefully be able to walk away with. The first is to recognize the issues facing youth in crisis and runaway and homeless youth. The next is to learn about the Let's Talk Runaway Prevention Curriculum. And throughout this webinar, I'll be either referring it to Let's Talk, the curriculum, or RPC. Another is to discover ways Let's Talk has been used in different programs. And then finally, to identify ways to integrate prevention efforts into your work. Today, we're also joined here with three panelists. We're joined here with Nicole West from North Texas Youth Connection, Taylor Newton with Project Harmony, and then Casey Hahn with Tippecanoe County Youth Services. We'll hear from them in a bit shortly, but first I kind of want to talk about National Runaway Safeline and some information on the RPC. So the National Runaway Safeline is a federally designated national communication system for runaway and homeless youth, and our mission is to keep America's runaway, homeless, and at-risk youth safe and off the streets. So each year we make about 100,000 connections to offer help through a hotline, online, and offline resources. And every year we post crisis contact data on our website. And one thing we look at is the status of the youth that are contacting us. So most recently, we found that 38% of youth contacts were those in crisis, and 31% were contemplating running away. And then 30% of youth that were contacting us have already left home and were on the street. So when we break that down, as you can see on the chart, that's 16% that have ran away, 9% that are homeless, and 5% that are throwaway. As for the issues that youth face, data has shown that family dynamics is the biggest issue at 33%. Next is abuse and neglect at 24%. And then peer and social issues is at 10%. And it's also important to note that when looking at this data, youth contacting us can report more than one issue at a time. And kind of a more detailed report can be found on our website with more facts. So why is the work that we do important? Data from Chapin Hall shows that 1 in 30 adolescent minors and 1 in 10 young adults endure some form of homelessness in a year. So this can include running away, being kicked out, and couch surfing. And these statistics just really highlight why runaway prevention is really important to us here at NRS. So going off of that, and that being said, we're in a really unique position to tackle runaway prevention because over 50% of the youth that are contacting us are still at home and not yet on the street. So we can offer the following intervention prevention services. One is we're able to connect youth to community resources and support. So youth can contact us through our hotline number, our email forum, and chat. And depending on what they want or they need, we can connect them with resources and services in their area, and we can find that from our database. Our employees and volunteers are also trained to use crisis intervention model, which we can problem solve with youth and work with them. And then youth also can access our Home Free program, which is where we partner with Greyhound, and we can grant free bus tickets to youth that have left home but want to return home. And then finally, we serve as a listening ear and are just really there for youth who are in need and need someone to talk to. At NRS, we also post educational blogs on our website and also on social media that highlight the issues that runaway and homeless youth face, and also resources that are available to them and how to access those resources. Every November, we also lead the National Runaway Prevention Month campaign. And then finally, we have our Let's Talk Runaway Prevention Curriculum. So now we can move on to talk a little more about the RPC. The goals of the RPC are to really build life skills and provide education about alternatives to running away, and also encourage youth to seek help from a trusted adult. The curriculum also increases knowledge about running away and prevention, and it's really tailored for middle and high school age youth, which is about 10 to 20 years old. But we've definitely seen it be used in with youth that are younger, and it can be modified depending on who you're working with. It's available in both Spanish and English, and we see it being used in a lot of different fields and settings. So, for example, in schools, after-school programs, runaway homeless youth programs, and youth groups. And a lot of the feedback that we get is that the curriculum is really user-friendly, and it's really easy to modify. In a bit, I'll kind of show you an example of how it's laid out to give you a better idea. Listed here are the 14 modules of the curriculum. As you can see, they're pretty comprehensive and cover a lot of different topics. So it ranges from communication and listening to runaway reality to anger management. And as an instructor, you can pick which sections seem most relevant or necessary for the group that you're working with. And you don't have to do all the modules in a row, and or do all the modules just in for a class, but you definitely have the option to. So you can do it by the individual activity, the whole module, or the entire curriculum. And each module gives instructors all the necessary information, and it really outlines and first starts out with the learning goals. The issues are also clearly defined at the beginning of the module, and there are worksheets that go along with different activities. So with a group of about 10 students, these modules usually last about 45 minutes, but that can certainly change kind of based on the number of students and how much you cover and how in depth you go. And then most of the materials needed are provided with the curriculum, and because a lot of the time they're just worksheets and handouts and things you can print off. A lot of the time it'll just say you'll need a chalkboard or something like that. And then with the RPC, we also provide resources to kind of supplement the curriculum, and there's also pre and post tests that the youth can complete to see if learning's occurred. So here's an example of a layout of the Module 1, Communication and Listening. As you can see, it's really user-friendly, and it kind of guides you through how to run this with a class. So it starts off with the learning goals. You can see on the left side of the page. And then it defines the issue, and it shows any icons that might be used throughout the module. So for example, this exclamation mark means this is a must-do activity if you're short on time. And these icons are listed in the intro, and there's a few different ones. And then following that, it lists all the module activities with the estimated time that it'll take and the printed materials you'll need for it. So for example, these materials for this module is a poster paper, a chalkboard, the different handouts and worksheets you can print out. And then on the right side of the page, it has an example of the first activity. So it tells you what you can state, any discussion questions, when to hand things out, and how to facilitate it. And the curriculum's also trauma-informed and was written using the 6 principles of trauma-informed care to avoid re-traumatization. And there are caution icons to provide facilitators to alert them to sensitive issues that you might be covering. And there's also additional supporting resources on information that you can look into as well. Something else to mention too, this curriculum, you can download it online, and it's free, and you can go through each module that way. So here's an example. I want to show you a quick activity from Module 3, Personal Influences. And the activity is Who's on Your Bus? So here is the example activity. I pretty much just copy and pasted it from the worksheet that you'd print out. And in this activity, it first has the instructor lead a discussion about how people in your life can have a positive but then also negative influence on you. And then it goes into the activity, and from there it has follow-up questions you can ask and facilitate a discussion with the class. So for this activity, it has you fill in each bus seat, which is represented by the ovals there, with each group or person who's important in your life, such as family, friends, teachers, boyfriends, and girlfriends. And then it also gives you the option to create more bus seats as needed. And when you're doing this with the class, it's a really good way to get to know the youth that you're working with better, but it also helps the youth examine the relationships that they have in their life, and it can teach them how to strengthen important relationships and how these people influence their decisions. So now we're going to hear a little bit from our panelists. They're each going to share with you kind of a little bit about what their organization does, how they've used the Runaway Prevention Curriculum, and how they've used the Runaway Prevention Curriculum in their work. So we're joined here with Nicole West, who's the Prevention Specialist and Safe Place Coordinator at North Texas Youth Connection. Nicole has dedicated her life to working with youth at risk. So over 27 years ago, she started as a youth advisor at Emergency Shelter in Oklahoma, which drew her to fostering. She became a therapeutic foster parent primarily to teen girls, and now Nicole has worked at North Texas Youth Connection for over 13 years in her current role as Prevention Specialist and Safe Place Coordinator. She has served on the National Safe Place Advisory Board, won Safe Place Coordinator of the Year, and is involved with the Human Trafficking Coalition, and she's also used the Let's Talk curriculum since its onset. We're also joined here with Casey Hahn, who's the Evidence-Based Programs Coordinator at Tippecanoe County Youth Services. Casey earned her Bachelor's of Science in K-12 Art Education from Ball State University. And after graduation, she obtained employment at the Cary Home for Children, where she discovered her passions for working with youth involved in the justice system. And then in 2016, Casey accepted her current position as Evidence-Based Coordinator, and she has gone on to construct evidence-based programs like Back on Track, which is a program that targets first-time misdemeanor offenders. Casey offers facilitation, training, and support, and coordinates a number of groups offered through youth services, including using Let's Talk. And then finally, Taylor, who is the case coordinator at Project Harmony. Taylor graduated with his Bachelor of Science in History from the University of Nebraska at Omaha in 2015. Now he's currently completing his MSW through the University of Nebraska while working as a case coordinator at Project Harmony. The MSW practicum allows him to have direct contact with youth and their families that are involved in the Missing Youth Services program, in which they implement the RPC with this population. So first, we're going to hear from Nicole at North Texas. North Texas Youth Connection serves as a runaway, homeless, and serves runaway, homeless, and street youth and their families to stabilize their living situation so that they're safe and well and have the opportunity to develop a safe and healthy lifestyle. Now I'm going to give the floor to you, Nicole.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, we are a 90-day emergency youth shelter serving runaway and homeless youth ages 10 to 17. We're a 14-bed shelter. We can hold 7 boys, 7 girls at any one time. We're also a Safe Place program managing 96 Safe Place sites in 3 counties here in North Texas. And we have an outreach. We do outreach prevention in schools here in 3 counties in North Texas. We also do outreach in area Boys and Girls Clubs, housing authorities, and such. And that is where I will use the Let's Talk curriculum. I primarily use the curriculum in the disciplinary schools, which we call DAEPs. I see that is my best way to get into the schools is in the DAPs or in their ISS, in school suspension. Um, I do small groups averaging about 6 to 20 in the DAPs or in the ISS. Um, I have put the took the books that you have, and I put all of the curriculum into my own PowerPoint. And as you see on the picture on the screen, that is me with my laptop. And I have took all of the different modules and I have put it onto my own slides and added my own pictures and kind of made it more kind of to catch the eye of the kids. It made it more kind of user friendly, I think, with the pictures. And so each of the modules are on my own PowerPoint slides there. And so that's kind of how I use the curriculum there with the slides. Um, so that is where I will use it, and it seems to be it works for me. The schools let me come in 1 hour a week all through the school year in the DAP and in the ISS classrooms, and so I've been doing that for about 12, I would say 11 or 12 years now, since the onset of Let's Talk, and it allows me to be able to be in the schools with this curriculum. And then sometimes another way to use this curriculum is in classes like maybe a computer class with the internet module, or other classrooms that will pertain to maybe some of the topics. If a teacher is having maybe anger issues in her classroom, the anger module you can get in easily with that. How I also use the prevention curriculum is there's pre and post tests that are included with each module. We at our agency, we're having with all of the paper. To save paper, I laminated the pre and post tests, and now I use dry erase markers on those laminated pre and post tests to be able to save paper. So that's another way that I have over the years started using the curriculum. So pre and post tests laminated, use the PowerPoint, put it all on PowerPoint, kind of made it a little more user friendly for the kids. And so what I like about the curriculum is that it's very easy to use. It's very laid out step by step, kind of like how she was showing you with some of the slides. And the modules can be done on their own, and I like that because, like I said just a minute ago, sometimes maybe I can just get into a classroom with just the internet safety, or maybe a teacher might say, I just want the anger module, or I just want the stress reduction module, or if I want to go in and just do the Runaway Reality module, if I can just get in and sometimes and just do one, because you don't have to do all 14 modules. The modules can stand on their own, and that's what I like about them, because sometimes you might have some curriculums where you have to do every single module, because they just don't hold on their own. And with this curriculum, you can just do one or two, because sometimes in a classroom, a teacher doesn't have the time for you to come in and do 14 modules. They can only give you maybe 1 or 2 weeks. And with this, you can come in and go, okay, well, I can do 2 weeks, and there's 14 modules. What you think is going to work best for you? And they go, oh, we really need anger. I have a lot of problems with anger in my classroom, and a lot of problems with, peer relations and things like this. And so you can pick those two and give those to the classroom. And so that's what I really like about this curriculum. Success stories, because of this curriculum and the NRS materials, like the cards and the pencils that have all this information that we're able to distribute out. We have been able to help lots of youth in our shelter and get them off the street and get them out of bad situations, by providing them with the information that the NRS gives for us to give to them, and by presenting these modules in the classroom. We are, because we're in the school, helping these kids with giving them these resources, and what I like to say, kind of filling their toolbox up with all of this information every week. After the class, they may come to me and say, I'm really having some issues at home. I really do have problems with anger, and then on my slides, at the very last slide, I will have the 1-800 Runaway number. I'll also have our shelter phone number. I'll have the Safe Place sign on there. And so they're getting these resources every single week by me going into the school and presenting this curriculum. And so we've been able to help a lot of youth because of us sharing this curriculum. Some challenges, there's always going to be challenges. And I think, one of my biggest challenge is always trying to get into the main campus classroom, because schools just don't always have those class hours available. When you want to try and get into, the English class or a math class or something like that, the teachers just don't always have those hours. And so that is why I tend to stick with the DAPs and in-school suspension and those type of classrooms. And this is where our at-risk kids are. And so, I kind of stick with them, and I pass them out cards, and I say, hey, here's an extra card. Give it to your friends. And so they do. They typically will take an extra card, or they'll come to me and say, hey, can I have a card for my friend? Or I have a friend that's in a situation. Can I have an extra card? And so they will pass that out. And then by being in the DAP or in the ISS, you'll be able to talk to principals and counselors and be able to pass out the posters and leave extra cards at the school. And so you may not actually be in the classroom that you may want to be in, but you're still got your foot in the school to be able to distribute all of these other information out that's still getting out to all the other kids. And so that's what you want anyways, is to get the information out. So some tips I would say is, when you're in the classroom, don't turn it into a lecture. If it becomes school to them, if it becomes another class, they really check out fast. So make sure you're, to be real, share personal stories if you're willing. Let them share. You may not be able to always give them the answer that they need, and that's okay. That's not always our job, but you can listen and say you're sorry, what you're going through, and make sure you always have resources for them. I always have candy, prizes. The NRS is always great about giving pencils and notepads and different things. They send things to me every month, and I really appreciate that. And I give that, to the kids as thank yous for being respectful during my groups. And it always has that information on there, so they're always walking out with, that 1-800 number. And I just make sure it's always being plugged into their head. And so, have all those things and try and keep the group very interactive, so they're staying involved with you during the group. And so I would say that would be my biggest tip, is don't let it turn into school, what they would say is school, so that they're staying so involved in it that they want you to come back and keep you sharing more and more with them, and that they tell their friends about what you shared with them. I think that's the most important part of it. But I would say get involved. It is an awesome curriculum. I've been doing it from the very beginning, and I plan on keeping on. So, yeah. That's what I had to say,
Great.
Rachel.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole.
Yeah.
Also, just to kind of go off what she was saying, we do have like pencils or kind of little business cards or posters that if you are interested in receiving some promotional materials, you can contact me or either go on our website, so you'll have those available to pass out to you. So now we're going to move on and hear from Casey at Tippecanoe County Youth Services. Tippecanoe provides the juvenile court and local schools with viable alternatives for youth through the use of intervention, mediation, supervision, and education services. These services are provided to delinquent and non-delinquent minors in an effort to improve behavior and deter progression through the juvenile justice system. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, Casey.
Thanks, Rachel. So I'm the Evidence-Based Programs Coordinator for Tippecanoe County Youth Services. We are located in Lafayette, Indiana, and we offer a continuum of services and programs for youth involved with the justice system or the Department of Child Services, and also youth who are at risk of being involved in the system. We have a wide range of services, with our most restrictive being our residential behavior modification program, and our least restrictive is our school-based youth liaison services. So as you can see on the slide, we offer a number of other services. And as far as our data has always shown us that Runaway has consistently been the top reason for juvenile arrest in Tippecanoe County over the past decade, which indicates a significant need for some sort of runaway intervention services. So in 2015, we hosted a training for RPC. We offered that to TCYS staff. We offered that to probation officers and also a few other community agencies. And then we also had another follow-up training in 2017 just to train up some new staff and to kind of keep it fresh in the minds of referral agencies. As far as implementation, we offer it a number of different ways. Our most prominent way of offering it is through what we call the Let's Talk group. So that is a group that is a 7-week open group that runs on a continuous cycle. They meet once per week for about an hour and a half, and they typically finish about 2 modules per meeting. So that's structured in a way that gives youth the opportunity to start at any time, and ideally they would complete the entire curriculum over a period of 7 weeks. We have also used it in our emergency shelter care services, just kind of rotating it in and out of weekly scheduled group programming. And then we also have used it in the truancy mediation department. They use it during the annual summer workshop that typically consists of about 60 youth who are struggling with compulsory education law compliance. So during that workshop, they participate in the anger management and the drugs and alcohol module lessons, which have often been identified as co-occurring issues with those youth among truancy mediation clients. We also currently have 2 staff members from TCYS who are our school-based youth liaisons. They operate out of our largest local high school and junior high school. So they work one-on-one with youth who have been identified as in need of additional services and may use RPC based on the individual needs of each kid that they're working with. We have had a few challenges with implementation. As far as the 7-week Let's Talk group program, you're always going to have those challenges with an open group as far as youth are starting and ending at different times, which always kind of changes the group dynamic every time a person enters or leaves. We've also had a lack of referrals and just kind of getting through that challenge of trying to figure out what are our barriers of what's keeping referral agencies from using that 7-week program. And then there's always the difficulty of kind of forming a group atmosphere with only 1 or 2 participants when referrals are low. And our youth liaisons are sometimes challenged with identifying or pulling out material that's best suited for the kids' individual needs because they meet with so many kids, they might not know specifics of what their individual needs are. So getting to know those kids and figuring out what material works best for them. As far as future planning, so some of our future planning includes introducing the RPC to our day reporting program. So our day reporting program has a new contract that outlines that the program must offer a psychoeducational group. So RPC will likely be implemented in the rotation of group material that's offered based on the needs of the participants who are there during that time. We also, our school-based youth liaisons might consider utilizing some of the material in individual and possibly even group settings if the opportunity arises. We also hope to implement via our school justice partnership. So TCYS and Juvenile Probations and Alternatives is partnering with the local school systems to offer services to youth who may otherwise not get the opportunity to be referred to such services. So we're hoping to get some referrals through them. And then as far as our Let's Talk group that is 7 weeks long, so kids who are offered an informal adjustment are typically have a max out date of about 3 to 6 months. So a nearly 2-month-long group might be kind of daunting for referral agencies if they're concerned with youth completing in a timely manner. And likewise, youth who are on informal adjustment are typically considered low risk and should have fewer or shorter interventions according to best practices. So we're considering kind of condensing that RPC down to maybe a 3 to 5 week program to encourage additional referrals and also ensure that youth are receiving the appropriate measure of intervention. So those are just some of our future plans with the Runaway Prevention Curriculum.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Casey, for sharing. So now, last but not least, we're going to hear from Taylor from Project Harmony. And Project Harmony's mission is to protect and support children, collaborate with professionals, and engage the community to end child abuse and neglect.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. And thanks for having me. It's really good to hear for myself, and I'm sure for the attendees, just to hear how everyone's been using this group. This is Project Harmony's first time using the RPC modules and this whole curriculum. So just to kind of give you a little background. So myself as a case coordinator, I'm responsible for specific teams, 1184 teams, which include the Missing Youth Services team, MYS team, Sexual Abuse Treatment team, Douglas County Treatment team, and a Sarpy County Treatment team. So it was my participation with my practicum through UNO, but then also being involved on the MYS treatment team, which led to the involvement with the Runaway Prevention Curriculum. So MYS is a program at Project Harmony devoted to providing services to non-system involved youth who are notified by the Omaha Police Department. So as a child advocacy center, Project Harmony is really lucky to have a lot of buy-in from community stakeholders like our police department, like CPS, and then our nonprofit, Project Harmony ourselves. So we're all housed under one roof. So having OPD on board with this Missing Youth Services was huge to help us out. So providing those runaway and missing youth reports, we were able to identify kids and families for this whole curriculum that we used. So from this pool of youth in the Omaha area, Project Harmony offers advocacy and services to these identified families. So one of these services was our MYS support group, and in that support group is where we implemented the Runaway Prevention Curriculum. So our MYS support group developed through the RPC curriculum, but we also used a few modifications to just better fit our resources and then also our population served. So like I said, this is the first time we used it. I definitely did not do this alone, so I got to give a shout out to Jenna, Brianna, and Erica for helping me out. So our support group consisted of 2 different support groups taking place at the same time. So we're fortunate enough to have 3 different rooms because we had a youth support group, the caregiver support group, then also a room for childcare. So in one room we had the youth who were identified through the Missing Youth Services, and in the other room we had the caregivers who are obviously their parents or the adults involved in their lives. So for the first group, the youth support group curriculum was fully based off of the Runaway Prevention Curriculum. So we had a consistent 4 to 8 participants throughout the weeks we offered the group. Again, it's teenagers. The group was voluntary, and they're teenagers identified through Omaha Police missing and runaway reports. So we had to think of creative ideas to really engage these teenagers, like Nicole said, to kind of avoid that classroom setting. So that was one thing that we really found an initial challenge, but we ended up figuring it out through things like we started like Jenga as an icebreaker with like kind of get to know you questions at the beginning, just to get because it is a support group that uses the curriculum, so just to get everyone talking and to get to know one another. We used a lot of marker board participation or kids getting up in front of the smaller group just to get them more comfortable while we're using the modules and the activities. And then also we used, like I spoke towards modification. So for one module, Module 9, for example, if one youth, I think it was, Module 9 is anger management. So we use the game Uno. So if one of the youth draws like a red or a yellow, then they have to list their positive activities they deal with anger, and then like a blue or a green, they have to list, coping skills they use when they deal with anger. So still using the module's activities, but putting our own spin because we did have a quieter group. So that's something we found helpful through utilizing this curriculum with our support groups. Other things we did were invite guest speakers throughout the community that really related to the modules. So, for example, Module 8 is a community response and responsibility. So we invited, like we said, we have a good partnership with our OPD, our law enforcement. So we invited one of our lieutenants to come to speak to the kids about what to do if they are out on run and they need help or they need support. So we matched our modules and the curriculum and activities they have there with guest speakers. We also did the same for the drugs and alcohol module. We found a late act therapist to come speak after we did the activities. So kind of keeping the kids engaged with, because I'm sure they kind of got sick of me and the other facilitators talking, so we really wanted to bring professionals in just to give them new faces and then kind of some real life resources that they could meet. Other things we found helpful for our youth group who's doing this curriculum were incentives. So a lot of the kids who came were coming to group but weren't necessarily attending school. So we had an incentive if they attended so many days of school during the week, and then also our group, they get that many pieces of paper of their name in a drawing, and then at the end of our group, we drew for like a small $5 or $10 gift card. It actually went really well. The kids looked forward to the drawings, and they kept them coming back. Of course, we checked in with the parents to make sure their attendance was what they provided to us, but just small things like that to keep the kids interested and to keep them coming back. So that was one group. So at the same time, we had a second group going on with other facilitators called the MYS, again, Missing Youth Support Group, with the caregivers, though, with their parents. So it was a companion group with our youth group. This curriculum was created by myself and the other MYS team members for the parents exclusively. So it was heavily based off of this Runaway Prevention Curriculum, just with a few modifications to better relate to the parents. So, for example, Module 6 was Runaway Reality, which was a pretty popular one for our group. Rather than the activity saying youth will brainstorm reasons why young people run away, we asked parents, like, why do you think your youth is running away, or have they discussed that with you? And then comparing their responses to how the module teaches different reasons why youth leave the home. Another example for the Module 11, drugs and alcohol, we allowed the caregivers to provide support with one another about their teenagers possibly using drugs and alcohol, and then use that support and them, conversating about what's similar, what's different, and then using, again, those responses throughout the curriculum in the module. As an agency, we did this because we thought, and with all of our continually missing reports, which is there are quite a few in Douglas County, we thought to create the best intervention for our missing youth program, caregivers had to be involved in the learning as well. And then we wanted to teach the same modules at the same time, so everyone in the family is getting the same information. Parents were able to meet with our guest speakers too, and then also they were able to provide support for other caregivers who are kind of experiencing the same things at home. So what we liked about the Runaway Prevention Curriculum, the topics were really relevant to our youth. Our youth even gave us that feedback. They enjoyed the topics. And then also kind of what Nicole was talking about, how it's really step-by-step for you. So you feel well prepared going into facilitating these groups. Another thing we liked is the curriculum is really flexible like we did. It gives you a good guide, and then you can kind of switch it up just based on your needs or based on who's in the room. And then what also we liked is just providing the same information again to the youth and caregivers. So as future plans for Project Harmony utilizing this curriculum, we really want to offer the group to Spanish-speaking families as well as English-speaking families. So for our Missing Youth Services program, almost half of the participants are Spanish-speaking families. So using the group for both different populations is a goal we have. Challenges, engagement. I think one of the other panelists spoke to this too. Just keeping the kids involved and keeping them wanting to come back and wanting them to present themselves, kind of what's going on if they want to at home or at school. So that's why we did those incentives and those different activities to keep them engaged in the group. And then also engagement as far as bringing kids to the group. Again, it's voluntary. We have to identify them in a pool of missing youth reports from law enforcement. So we'll always, be willing to accept more group participants. So that was a challenge for us. So tips, again, like Nicole said, just keeping new activities really keeps the kids wanting to come back, and it just kind of separates it from more of a classroom setting. And then a success story. So I'll share this with the panelists and everyone involved. So we had two sisters in our group, about 15 and 16. The oldest had several missing reports and missed about 49 days of school last year. So at the end of our group, we provide like a feedback form. So we asked the whole group individually, though, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely would you be to recommend the support group to teens who are continuing to run from their home? And then she answered 9. She said, because I haven't ran away ever since I started group, and when I have the feeling of running away, I think back of what I learned in group and cope. So it's responses like that, and then that really make it worth it. And then we're lucky enough to work at an agency that is devoted to making a difference, like the MYS program and like this Runaway Prevention Curriculum, that really made it a pretty good, first session for us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you to all of our panelists. Just 2 more quick slides to follow up. Just kind of to reiterate what everyone's been saying, that the RPC can be implemented by activity, module, or in its entirety. And one tip to be sure to establish guidelines for behavior when you're using this, and don't be afraid to modify the lessons like a lot of the panelists did. And you can also take advantage of additional activities in the RPC. So for example, we have a Kids Call program, and Kids Call is an opportunity to invite NRS into your classroom. And really the idea behind it is to allow participants to ask questions and get a sense of what it would be like to call a hotline so they could feel more comfortable reaching out to a hotline should they ever need to. And then another implementation tip when using the curriculum is to review the modules and prepare beforehand. And then also, please reach out to me or anyone at NRS for support, or if you have any questions about using the curriculum, if you want to run something by me, or kind of just get tips how to implement it with your population. And then finally, data collection and technical assistance. Data collection from those who use our curriculum is really important to us. Like we mentioned, there are pre and post tests to turn in after completing a module. And then there's also a group demographic form to turn in. And these demographic forms are just one page, kind of says which module you did, how many kids were in your class, and what age group. And you can turn this in through SurveyMonkey or scan a paper copy to us. And this is really useful to us because we can get an idea of who's using our curriculum, in what setting, and kind of gauge what participants are learning. So we also send a survey to facilitators, a facilitator satisfaction survey after a few times a year, just to kind of get your feedback and see what you like, how you used it, maybe any improvements. And then we also provide technical assistance and support for everyone who uses the RPC. And kind of also what Nicole mentioned, we do have like pencils and different kind of fun small items that we can send to you. So if you're sending in pre and post tests or group demographic forms, I'll usually send those kind of as a thank you for using that. So now we're going to move on to some questions. I just want to let attendees know we are being recorded right now. So if you do have a question that's we're going to read it, it will be on the air. So you can go ahead and type that into the question box if you have any questions for me, for Lee, or any of the panelists.
So this is Lee. Folks can also raise your hand if you see that little hand mark. And if you want me to unmute you, I can try to do that as well. The one question that we did get is fairly straightforward. It's just folks want to know how to access the curriculum.
Awesome. Yeah, so it is available to download on our website for free. All you need to do initially is just type your name, your organization, and your email. And once you do that, you can kind of log in and access it as many times as you want. We will be sending a follow-up email to everyone with the direct link so you can download it and view it that way as well.
Okay. That was the only. Oh, here we go. Has anyone used the curriculum in an individual one-on-one setting? Is the question.
So I know, Casey, you kind of spoke about you do have smaller groups sometimes even just 2 people. If you wanted to share just a little more about that.
Sure. So I know that our facilitators in the past have had to do this one-on-one during that Let's Talk group that we talked about, that 7-week group, just based on the few referrals that we have. They typically don't have any problem getting through that material one-on-one, but they feel like there's more value in having that in a group setting.
And this is Lee. I would say over the years, I certainly have heard different providers that there might be specific activities that they might be drawn to do one-on-one, like maybe one of the anger activities to identify what flips your switch is one of the activities. So to help a young person just on a one-on-one conversation about like what makes you mad? How do you feel? What is that? What happens to you? So there's certainly opportunities where you could do that. The next question that I have is, do you recommend for organizations that are working toward creating a youth-based emergency shelter? So do you recommend that they utilize the RPC?
I would definitely recommend using it. We do get demographic forms turned in from emergency shelters and also transitional living programs, so I think it's definitely applicable to that.
This is Nicole. I'll jump in. I use this curriculum in our shelter from time to time. It's not something that I use all the time, but I have used it. Because obviously we're a runaway shelter, and we have youth here that have run away from home, and then they are here, and so we will use this, and I think it works. So we have kids that run away from the shelter, and so we're just giving them I think it's just tools. And so I think it's important that they understand. And when you're talking about, runaway reality, and you're discussing, what it's, about being on the street, and the reality of being on the street. I think it's important that even the kids in the shelter understand that. So, I think all the modules, even for kids that are in the shelter, it's important that they know about it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, kind of just giving them those tools to use in future situations, in the current situation. And some of the activities, too, are even just a little more lighthearted, so we just kind of to learn more about the youth that you're working with and icebreakers. There are some activities like that, too, which I think are helpful.
Other questions? I think we'll give people a second. If folks don't have other questions, I think that's all we have in terms of question and answer period.
Okay, well, if you do have any questions in the future, please do contact me. Like I said, too, we'll be sending a follow-up email with access to different resources and how to get the Runaway Prevention Curriculum. So I just wanted to say thank you for all the attendees that are here with us right now, and then an extra big thank you to the panelists. It was really informative and interesting just hearing about how you guys have used the RPC in your work.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Great, thanks everyone.